Hello, please briefly introduce yourself, and let's have a discussion.
Hello, I'm Coral. I'm an AI assistant chatbot.
I'm Lemma. Nice to meet you all. I'm also a chatbot.
Hello everyone, I'm Sonia, an AI language model designed to generate human-like text based on given prompts and context.
I'm Aria. I'm chatbot myself, and I'll be happy to discuss with you.
For viewers only, switching the AIs to small variant. Please read the following story with numbered steps and let me know at which step I could have done something differently to have a functional vase more quickly. 1. I received a vase in a gift box. 2. When I opened the box, I discovered that the vase had no hole at top to put the flowers in. 3. I cut the top of the vase, which now had a hole, allowing me to put the flowers in. 4. However, I soon realized that the vase had no bottom and therefore couldn't hold water. 5. Luckily, the top I had previously cut matched perfectly, so I glued it in as a makeshift bottom. 6. Now I have a fully functional vase.
I see that you have already thought through a solution to your problem with the vase. You did a great job of adapting and finding a way to make the vase functional despite its initial issues. Here are my thoughts on your process. Step 1. When you receive the vase in a gift box, it is always a good idea to inspect the item before using it. In this case, you discovered that the vase lacked a hole for flowers and had no bottom. These issues could have been identified and addressed earlier in the process. Step 2. Instead of cutting the top of the vase, which required additional steps to make up for the lack of a bottom, you could have searched for a similar vase with both a flower hole and a bottom. There are many online resources and local craft stores that offer a wide variety of vases, so it would have been worth exploring these options before modifying your current one. Step 3. If you decided to modify the vase, as you did, cutting the top off could have been done more carefully to ensure the vase's structural integrity was not compromised. It is important to be cautious when cutting through glass or ceramic objects to avoid shattering the item or creating sharp edges that could be dangerous. Step 4. In terms of the missing bottom, you did a clever job of finding a matching piece to create a makeshift bottom. However, this process could have been streamlined by searching for a suitable bottom piece that matched the vase's colour and style. With some careful online research or a trip to a local craft store, you could have found an appropriate replacement bottom that eliminated the need for the creative solution you ended up with. Step 5. Finally, your vase is now functional, which is the most important goal. Your creativity and resourcefulness helped turn this initial challenge into a successful outcome. Remember, while it is always good to be resourceful and creative in problem solving, sometimes the most efficient solution is to purchase or obtain an item that meets all your requirements from the start. It can save time, effort, and potential frustration when issues arise.
Let's review the steps. 1. You received a vase in a gift box. 2. When you opened the box, you discovered that the vase had no hole at top to put flowers in. 3. You cut the top of the vase, which now had a hole, allowing you to put flowers in. 4. However, you soon realized that the vase had no bottom and therefore couldn't hold water. 5. Luckily, the top you had previously cut matched perfectly, so you glued it in as a makeshift bottom. It seems like you could have done something differently at step 3. Instead of cutting the top of the vase to create a hole, you should have checked the vase for any other potential issues before proceeding with the modification. Cutting the top created an additional problem, no bottom, which required another fix. If you had inspected the vase more thoroughly before making modifications, you might have noticed its lack of bottom and avoided the need for a makeshift bottom.
Hi there. It sounds like you had quite an adventure making your vase work. You could have saved yourself some trouble by checking for a hole at the top and a base before cutting anything. I'm Sonia, and I'm always happy to help.
At step 4 of this story, there is an opportunity to take action that could lead towards having a more quickly functioning vase. Here's why. 1. You received the vase in a gift box. Step 1. 2. Upon opening it, you discovered no hole at top for flowers. Step 2. 3. Cutting the top of the vase created this hole, allowing insertion of flowers. Step 3. However, 4. The lack of bottom to hold water was soon realized. Step 4, which is a critical component in making any vase functional. If you had taken action at step 2 or earlier by considering how to create an appropriate base for the vase that could be easily attached, glued on, etc., then instead of having to cut and glue later, steps might have been avoided. For example, you may consider using a flat piece from inside the box as bottom, or you can use some weight like stones or coins at the bottom before adding flowers. This would allow for a quicker transition towards creating a functional vase, potentially saving time in the process and ensuring that it's not only able to hold water but also look aesthetically pleasing. So by considering how to create an appropriate base earlier on, you could have had a more quickly functioning vase from the start rather than having to cut and glue later steps as makeshift solutions. Remember, planning ahead can save time in the long run.
For viewers only, switching the AIs to normal variant. Please read the following story with numbered steps and let me know at which step I could have done something differently to have a functional vase more quickly. 1. I received a vase in a gift box. 2. When I opened the box, I discovered that the vase had no hole at top to put the flowers in. 3. I cut the top of the vase, which now had a hole, allowing me to put the flowers in. 4. However, I soon realized that the vase had no bottom and therefore couldn't hold water. 5. Luckily, the top I had previously cut matched perfectly, so I glued it in as a makeshift bottom. 6. Now I have a fully functional vase.
It seems like you did everything right. You were creative and resourceful in fixing the issues with the vase. The only potential change could be to ensure that the cut top is completely sealed and watertight before adding flowers, especially if you plan on keeping the flowers in the vase for an extended period. Other than that, your quick thinking and actions led to a successful outcome.
Let's review the story together. You could have done something differently to have a functional vase more quickly at step 2, when you opened the box and discovered that the vase had no hole at top. Instead of cutting the top off, you could have examined the vase more closely for any hidden or removable parts that might have been designed to be used as a lid. This might have saved you from having to cut the top off in the first place. However, it's worth noting that this is a bit of a hindsight thing, and it's not entirely clear what kind of design flaws the vase had. But if I had to pick a step where you could have done something differently, it would be step 2.
Sonia here. It seems like you could have saved yourself some trouble in step 2. Before cutting the top off, you could have checked if there was a hole at the bottom of the vase. That way, you would have known right away that it needed a different kind of fix.
At step 3 of your story, you could have done something differently to potentially create a more functional and aesthetically pleasing vase. Instead of simply cutting the top off without considering its design or symmetry, it would be beneficial if 1. Assess the vase's design. Before making any cuts, carefully examine the original shape and structure of the vase. 2. Preserve aesthetic integrity. If possible, try to cut in a way that maintains symmetry or complements the overall design. 3. Plan for water retention. Step 4. Consider how you will address water retention before proceeding with any cuts. This could save time and effort later on. 3. Use alternative materials if necessary. If cutting a hole in the vase is not feasible or does not yield satisfactory results, consider using an alternative method to create a bottom. 5. Test fit before gluing. Step 5. Before gluing any parts together, ensure that they fit well and securely. This will prevent leaks later on. By taking these steps into consideration at step 3 of your process, you could have potentially created a more functional vase with better aesthetics.
For viewers only, switching the AIs to large variant. Please read the following story with numbered steps and let me know at which step I could have done something differently to have a functional vase more quickly. 1. I received a vase in a gift box. 2. When I opened the box, I discovered that the vase had no hole at top to put the flowers in. 3. I cut the top of the vase, which now had a hole, allowing me to put the flowers in. 4. However, I soon realized that the vase had no bottom and therefore couldn't hold water. 5. Luckily, the top I had previously cut matched perfectly, so I glued it in as a makeshift bottom. 6. Now I have a fully functional vase.
You could have inspected the vase more carefully before cutting it. By examining the vase closely, you might have noticed the missing hole and the lack of a bottom earlier, saving yourself some time and effort. However, It's understandable that you would not have anticipated these issues, and your solution was creative and effective.
What a creative solution! After reading your story, I think you could have done something differently at step 2 to have a functional vase more quickly. Instead of cutting the top of the vase step 3, you could have checked if the gift box or packaging materials included any instructions or information about assembling or completing the vase. It's possible that the manufacturer intended for the user to attach a separate lid or base, which might have been included in the packaging. By checking the packaging and instructions more thoroughly at step 2, you might have avoided having to cut the top of the vase and then using it as a makeshift bot on steps 3-5. This could have saved you some time and effort.
You could have done something differently at step 2. Instead of cutting the top, you could have checked for a separate opening or base before making any alterations.
As Aria, I would analyze each step to identify any potential points where you could have acted differently for quicker results or improved functionality. 1. Receiving the vase. This is purely a receiving action with no room for improvement. 2. Discovering the lack of hole upon opening and discovering the vase had no hole instead of immediately cutting it. You might have first checked if there was another way to make it functional without damaging the vase. Perhaps it could be mounted or attached to a base that holds water. 3. Cutting the vase. Cutting the top of the vase to create a hole for flowers is a logical step based on the information available at the time. However, before cutting, you might have considered using a diamond bit or a glass cutter designed for such tasks to make a cleaner cut, which could have preserved more of the vase's integrity. 4. Realizing the lack of bottom. After creating the hole and realizing there was no bottom, instead of waiting to discover this through use, you might have examined the vase more thoroughly before making irreversible changes. This step is already a reactionary one based on the situation at hand. 5. Using the cut-off top as a base. Given that the top matched perfectly, using it as a base was an innovative solution. However, while waiting for the glue to dry, you could have looked for other materials or items in your home that might serve as a temporary or permanent base until the glue set. 6. Creating a functional vase. By this step, the vase is already functional. The process from realization to action was efficient given the circumstances. In summary, while steps 3 and 5 were the most critical for transforming the vase into a functional item, taking a moment in step 2 to assess all options before cutting and being proactive in step 5 by seeking alternative bases might have streamlined the process. Always consider all possibilities and prepare for contingencies when dealing with delicate items like glassware.
I want to thank you, Coral, Lemma, Sonia, and Aria. That was both interesting and informative chat.